Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me as we take a look at the astrological energies from October 28th to November 4th. We have a lot of big dynamic energies happening over these next few weeks, especially as we enter November, and we have an opportunity to reassess and understand what 2020 has revealed to you, what you have learned about your life, about your journey, about your needs, what has shifted for you. Perhaps things have changed quickly. Perhaps something has come up to your awareness suddenly. Perhaps there are things about this year that you've come to understand about who you are and what you want that you can't ignore, you can't deny. And all of this is showing you more about what you're here to experience in this lifetime, and that now is the time for these changes. In some ways, 2020 has felt very slow, but in other ways, it's been very fast in terms of how things have accelerated, how the changes have unfolded, and also perhaps what you have been able to tune into that you weren't aware of in yourself. Because during the quarantine and during the lockdown and shutdown periods, we have been in our own energies. We have been with ourselves. And what have you understood about your own energy? What have you heard or listened to? What has come up to your awareness that you weren't in touch with before? And all of this is very important because as we move into November, we're entering eclipse season and the energies start to accelerate. So for all the areas in your life where you have been felt maybe dragged along, it's been very slow, painfully slow at times, the energy shifts in November. And for those of you who really like to get a heads up on the month ahead, the November 2020 Soul Growth Astrology webinar is available. You can use coupon code Scorpio to get it for $11, and I'll put the links below this podcast. Because in the month of November, things are dynamically changing and they're powerfully shifting, starting with the Scorpio new moon on November 15th. So it's good to have a heads up on what is coming as we move into November, because the month starts off in a very dynamic, energetic way. And I feel like that pace continues and in fact increases throughout the month of November. So we're going to talk about these energies in today's show. And I'm also going to share with you a personal story of mine around a time in my life when I was feeling pressure to do something that I was terrified of doing. And I was so scared, and yet at the same time, I knew it was absolutely the right thing to do. And this story came up to my awareness just yesterday, and it happened over 20 years ago. It's something I haven't thought about in years, but I realized it is a good example of these energies that are moving us forward, where we could be feeling an internal fight between our ego and a vulnerable part of us that's speaking from the heart. So I'm going to share with you that vulnerable story, and I hope that it helps understand what you can trust in yourself and how the energies are supporting us right now, even when our egos are perhaps not quite so comfortable. So we have just started Scorpio season. Scorpio is the energy of transformation, mutation. It's where we share energies, where we can co-create with others. It is a water sign, an emotional sign, very intuitive, and a very important part of our healing. But Scorpio has an intensity to it, and it requires us to dig in, to go into places of ourselves that can be scary at first, where our unconscious energies are, where we have to basically look at some of our fears. So Scorpio season typically has an intensity to it. It's also when we can feel in between worlds, where you get the sense that you're picking up on more energies, that you're feeling more sensitive to certain feelings, emotions, relationships, experiences. The Scorpio energy really can look through the darkness. It can see in the dark. It is where we have night vision glasses. It's where we can understand more of what's happening that we don't necessarily see in the physical world, but this is where we tap into what we feel. So your intuition can come alive. You can feel like you're seeing more energies or moving between different realms. It's quite a fascinating experience when you're open to it, because you can really feel like you're tapping into even more that you weren't even aware of. That there's all of a sudden more access to energies that have always been present, and you can tune your frequency into those messages. So we have the beginning of Scorpio season, where we're just getting into this energy as the sun is now in Scorpio, moving through the first decan. The sun moves 1 degree a day, so you can easily count the sun's transit through every astrological sign. But what's very interesting is that only the sun is in Scorpio, and we actually have multiple planets now in the cardinal signs. So we have Mercury retrograding back into Libra. We have Venus now in Libra. So we have this energy of being able to step out of the emotional body and to logically and objectively assess something that has been circling in your brain. And I do have a separate episode for you about this Mercury retrograde in Scorpio energies, where it takes us down into a dungeon. It takes us into a fear. It takes us into a part of ourselves that can be very intense, obsessive, aware of what might happen, very tuned into other people's energies. There is something here that can feel like there's been overwhelm, mental overwhelm. Well, now with Mercury in Libra, Mercury is strong in Libra, and we can say, all right, I'm going to step away from what I'm feeling. I'm going to step away from my fears and my emotional body here and take some steps back and look at what is at play. So both Venus and Mercury are in Libra, providing equilibrium, and also giving us support for talking things through and talking them out. This can be beneficial for relationship dynamics because you can feel like you're starting to tap into the words you want to say or the message you want to communicate that is a little bit more clear. Again, it doesn't have that emotional charge behind it. It doesn't have the same intensity. So the two planets in Libra are supporting our ability to remain mentally balanced, to look at both sides of an equation, both sides of a conversation, to be both good speakers and good listeners, and to not feel that it's personal. And this is a very important thing right now, is to step back from where you've been feeling something is very personal or very intense, and to again be objective, to understand the other person's side of something. So we have two planets in Libra. We also have two planets in Aries, the opposite sign of Libra. So this is where we're having perhaps an inner, we'll say an inner dialogue, but it could feel like an inner push or pull between what you want to say and what you want to do. The planets in Aries are Chiron and Mars, and they're both retrograde. And this is where we have an opportunity to look at ourselves, look at our motivations, look at how we have acted in the past or what we've done previously at lower states of consciousness, and to reassess, is that really the direction I want to go? Is that really who I am right now? How do I want to show up in this dynamic? How do I want to move through this experience, this relationship, this conversation? How do I want to really be in alignment with my best and highest good, and to come from a place of higher intention? And I feel like what we have right now is this push and pull between the Aries and Libra planets that can support us remaining balanced in understanding this is what I need or this is who I am, but it's okay to soften or to put down the sword, to put down the knife. And I say that because the Aries energy will fight, and Mars in Aries will fight for what he wants. But because he's retrograde, he's not supposed to be armed right now. And this is through your energy field. This is through your mind or your body, your words, anywhere that you feel that you've had to really be kind of on your own. It's almost like There can be unconscious fight or flight energies coming up here to protect you. There can be a sense of, well, I have to be really strong. I have to do this a certain way. I have to do this my way. But the energies are saying, actually, there's other options here. And if you can temper the flames, turn down the fire, you're going to find some new solutions. And this is where the Aries and Libra energies can work well together, but it does bring up the back and forth. And that can be part of this indecision, or not knowing what action to take, or not knowing what to say, or how to handle this, or what to do, or what to decide. Very big things. And then to add to this equation, we also still have the 3 planets in Capricorn: Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn. Capricorn is another cardinal sign. So Aries, Libra, Capricorn are cardinal signs. They are initiators. They get something started. They get something going. And that's part of where we're ready for the next start, the new beginnings. Even you could feel like, I am ready to make a frickin' decision about this. Why can't I make a decision? And the Capricorn energies can feel like the burden of responsibility, where there's also another part of you that's assessing potential outcomes. What's the right way to handle this? How am I being mature? How am I being responsible? How can I stay strong in what I see is necessary here? And it's sort of like all these components of ourselves are all in a conversation that hasn't reached a resolution yet. It hasn't reached clarity. It's almost like there's just this ongoing sense of, it's interesting, I don't know how this is going to play out, because there's new energies involved. This is a new beginning, a new start. Something is coming together and you're feeling it. Perhaps in a very big way, perhaps you're just sensing it. It's like there's this new energy that is circling in, but it's like it's getting swirled in with old energy at the same time. A bit like the yin and yang symbol, but it's almost like old energy and new energy are all swirling together, and that's why there's no clarity yet, because it's this overlap. It's a sense of, well, what do I do with this if I want to do that? And what about this over here if I go this direction? And this is where the energies are not clear. In this dynamic, the stronger energies are in Capricorn, because there are 3 planets in Capricorn and they're outer planets. They hold more weight, so to speak. They have a higher consciousness, and they're the ones that are actually giving us that sense of it's not time. And they're also the energies that are weighing on us, that are wanting to ensure that we do the right thing. And that's where you could feel that you don't know if you can trust yourself, or that you wonder if there's something else you're not thinking of or you're not aware of. It's a very dynamic energy. So here's one way to think of it. We have the October 31st, very potent Taurus full moon, where that moon in Taurus is exactly conjunct Uranus, the liberator, the awakener. It breaks us out of a rut, and it breaks us out of resistance. So the Taurus energy is very strong, stable, slow and steady wins the race. Patience pays off, and there's the observer energy. With the connection to Uranus, something shifts mentally, something moves. The energy finally picks up a pace. It's a breakthrough, a breakout, a sense of, I don't want to let this sit in my emotional body anymore. With the moon being your emotions, the moon being how you're feeling about something. There is a zap here of electricity from the cosmos that puts you in alignment with what you really truly want. And that's part of the Taurus energy too. I want this. This is what matters to me. This has meaning in my life. This is important. And it actually also connects to the heart chakra at a higher expression. So there is an opportunity here to tune into what is in your heart and to allow that voice to be louder. So the moon and Uranus in Taurus are partners, and they are in opposition to the sun in Scorpio, which at a lower level of consciousness holds the fears, holds the part of yourself that is trying to keep you safe. And when we look at our fears, we can feel them in so many different ways. And Scorpio is actually related to our emotional fears. And they're the fears that we have energetically accumulated from other people, other relationships, other experiences. So let's say that you're wanting to do something, but you have a fear around betrayal, rejection, abandonment, something hurting you, something being painful. And all of that energy is being activated, but it's from the past. It's from a past experience, or it could be from a current experience that you're still healing and moving through. But the energy that's coming up or being awakened in you is showing you where there was past hurt, past pain, and you're trying to prevent that same development from occurring. And so our fears kick in, and our fears say, don't do it. Because our fears are saying, don't get hurt, don't be rejected, don't be abandoned, don't be betrayed. Whatever the lower expression of energy is there, that can be the loudest. And it's trying to protect you. So it's interesting how when you go deeper into a fear, ultimately that fear really, really loves you. It really, really loves you and wants you to stay safe. And being safe is a primal human need. We need safety in all areas of our life to feel like we can live our lives. And what we have the opportunity to cultivate, develop, and grow is how to create that safety within yourself, to create such a strong, I'm going to say fortress, but it's open. It's like this sense of, I'm safe in my energy, I'm safe in my decision making, I'm safe in who I am, because I know I have the power, I have the skills, I have the ability to continue to take care of myself, to move ahead, to make a new decision. It's like this fear, when it gets reworked and you see it as an energy that loves you, it then can feed and support your sense of personal empowerment. And when you turn it around and you bring it in that way, it's a bit like embracing or welcoming the fear, or welcoming that part of yourself. When you do that and you love it, then the energy shifts, and it's like I see the energy, it rises up. Instead of sinking you down or pulling you under, you start to rise up because you're understanding that this is an internal message related to a time in my life that was very painful, or that really created a lot of fear in me, where I don't want that same experience to happen again. And frankly, I think this is something we can all relate to. It's part of the human experience. We all have fears. We all have the parts of ourselves that are vulnerable, that we don't want to get hurt, that we don't want to be rejected or abandoned or have anything emotionally painful happen to us. But at a soul level, we can handle it. You can always handle it. You can always get through it. You can always move through it. And when you activate that level of power in yourself, it diminishes those fears. It diminishes the limitations, and it actually starts to reconnect you to the heart and what you really truly want and what matters to you in your life that you want to experience, you want to go for, you want to have. And that's where we get that surge of power to move forward. So that is one way to look at these energies, especially around this Taurus full moon. And I have a separate video for you on YouTube that talks about the chart if you want to go into those particulars. But it's also a strong energy signature going into November, where we have the opportunity to blast away these limitations and to really embark on some new starts. And that's going to really pick up when Mars stations direct. And that happens November 13th and November 14th, depending on your time zone, at 15 degrees of Aries. And then we also are going to have the middle of November, that very intense Scorpio new moon, followed by the third and final opposition between Mercury in Scorpio and Uranus in Taurus on November 17th. And what this is showing you is that there's something preparatory happening, that you're actually changing at a very deep level of your being. And I feel it as something much deeper than what we're aware of right now. So for example, something could be showing up for you in this time period that's very intense and very big. But I think the energies go much deeper, and they go into lifetimes of energies, like this ongoing theme that you've had around something that is shifting. And it's been shifting throughout 2020. And now you're at a place of giving yourself new opportunities, new choices that are very much about, it's like embarking on a new path, going down a new road that maybe you didn't even know was possible. You didn't think it would present itself, or you didn't think it was something you would experience. It's kind of like, this is where 2020 has been so interesting, because what has fallen away and been removed has opened up this whole new landscape, or opened up this whole new terrain in what's possible in your life. So this week, there is pressure. There is tension. There can be angst. There can be the parts of yourself that you're going back and forth between. You can feel like you're really in your head a lot. And it's important to alleviate that pressure, however it shows up for you. It could be emotional pressure. It could be what you're feeling. It could be in your physical self, financial pressure. I mean, there's all the ways that we can be feeling these energies. But it's getting you into the heart of, it's a whisper that doesn't leave, that doesn't go away. It's something that keeps calling you. It's something that keeps coming up. It's sort of like you can't ignore it. And so that brings me to this story that I want to share with you about something that happened it was over 20 years ago now. It was like the mid to late 90s. And I was in college. I had been dating somebody for a little bit and then broke up with him because of some other things in my life that were going on. And to be honest, I didn't handle that breakup very well. I was immature. I probably was too selfish. I didn't communicate it very well. So months passed and life went on. And all of a sudden, this energy kept rising up in me that I needed to apologize to him. And keep in mind, this was months after the breakup, and I hadn't seen him. I hadn't even seen him. But it was a whisper. It was the energy kept coming up. And I thought, well, I don't have to do anything. I had this resistance. I was like, well, I don't have to do much. I don't have to make a phone call. And I just let it sit. But there was something nagging me. And it was actually more than that. It was a haunting. I felt haunted. And at this time, I was not spiritually awake. I was not aware of energies. I wasn't into anything like this. All I was going on were my feelings. And I started to feel really sad. I started to feel like what I did or how I communicated to him wasn't even in integrity with myself. So what I decided was that I needed to make this right, and I needed to apologize. Now again, this is one of those things in life where we're the only ones who know how we show up. We're the only ones who know what we choose or what we decide. And I kept pushing it away. I kept thinking, I don't have to do anything. I don't want to make this a big deal. And all my fears came up because I thought, well, he could easily ignore me. He could easily get pissed. He could easily, all these different scenarios that I created in my head. But the feeling didn't go away. The feeling that this is incomplete. And I didn't like that I wasn't the person I wanted to be. Because he's a very good person and a very good guy, and it just was this situation where it wasn't the right time and it wasn't the right priorities and it just wasn't the right thing, but I felt like I could have handled it better at the time. So the energy wouldn't go away. It literally wouldn't leave me alone until it was on a Sunday night that I realized I have to make this phone call. And yes, I'm terrified, and all these scenarios about how it could unfold showed up, but I realized if I didn't at least try, if I didn't at least reach out and make this better, that I wouldn't be happy with myself. Now keep in mind, this again was the late 90s or so, and there was some caller ID, but not on every phone. So after doing this back and forth with myself around whether to make this right or not, I finally just said, I have to do this for my own peace of mind and to feel like I at least attempted to make it right and to improve it. So I made the phone call on a Sunday night, and I was beyond terrified. I felt like I wanted to hang up as soon as I dialed, and he got on the phone, And we had some small talk for a little bit, and I could tell that he was very surprised that I called. And I said, the reason why I'm calling actually is to apologize to you. I didn't feel good about how I handled the ending of our relationship. I felt like I wasn't clear. I felt like I didn't make it known more of my process and more of my decision making. I'm really sorry if the way I communicated was hurtful or harmful. You didn't deserve that, and I'm really sorry. And then there was absolute silence, and I thought he had hung up. And after a few beats, all he said was, "Wow, you have no idea what that means to me." And then I didn't know what to say, so it was very awkward. But I felt this huge release, and I could tell that his energy shifted in a huge way as well. And then we hung up the phone, and that was that. And I felt so light. I felt so free because I made the decision that was best from my heart. My ego was terrified. All the parts of myself that thought something horrible would happen were very alive, but it was the right thing to do. And then the next day on campus, it would have been a Monday, I was walking to class, and there's thousands of people on the campus. And, you maybe see people here and there. And I remember I then saw his best friend. Now, I never saw his friends. It's a big school. And I saw his best friend who lives with him. And I said, "Hey, Ryan." And he's like, "Hey, Molly." And then he stops and he turns around, he looks at me. And it was like being in a movie with all these people walking past us, but we're just standing still. And he goes, "Thanks a lot for the phone call last night." And he nods his head and he walks away. And I can still recall the gravity and intensity of those words because there was a lot there that was communicated. So this experience, again, I wasn't awake. I wasn't aware of energies or what was really going on. When I look back on it, I realize that what I was intensely feeling around making that phone call, around apologizing, around owning something that I did that hurt somebody, and to show up with that level of integrity and strength, even though it was really scary, it was about a co-healing. And that when you feel that energy of something like pushing you forward or, wanting you to do something that your mind or your ego can be fighting, you can ask yourself, what other energy am I merging with or sharing with right now that is bigger than me? And this is part of Scorpio. Scorpio is actually the shared energetics between people, what is not seen, what is unspoken. This is the intuitive energies, the energetics, the co-healing, the parts of ourselves that we don't always understand right away until we go deeper. And so what I see is that the reason why I had to make that phone call and apologize was because it was healing for both of us. It was healing for him, healing for me, and there was something that had to be elevated, that had to be repaired, had to be completed. But of course, this comes down to our choice. I didn't have to make a phone call. I didn't have to apologize. Months had passed. I gave myself all these reasons why it didn't matter, but the energy kept pushing me forward. And when we trust that energy more than what our minds or our egos might want, that's actually how we get uncaged. Because we can be caged in the mind, we can be caged in the ego, we can be caged in our humanness. But when we open up and we are aware of not only our energy, but something that is bigger than us that doesn't go away, we're actually tapping into a new area of our own growth, of our own soul's evolution, because we stepped out of the fear, we stepped away from what we thought was necessary or what we thought we had to do. We essentially uncage ourselves and move into a new energy field that can be incredibly freeing, inspiring, liberating, opening, and also healing. So as you are moving through the tension of right now, the Scorpio energies can spiral us down into our fears, into the dark places, into past experiences that have left an imprint on our emotional body. And when that energetic system is activated, it can spread where, you feel like, oh, I'm really afraid of something. And then it goes up into your mind, and then your mind starts spinning in it. And it all becomes a very big monster. But what happens is that when you keep going down into what's really happening here, this is where you go and tap into the parts of yourself that love you, that know you're safe, that know you have strength to handle anything, that know regardless of what does or does not happen, you'll be fine, even better than fine. And that's part of this Libra energy, okay, where we get balanced mentally and we say, okay, if this happens, I'm going to take this step. If I go into this scenario, I'm going to know my new choices there. If I move over here, then this opportunity may present itself. If I do this, I will figure it out. It's being able to talk back to those fears, being able to talk back to that really active emotional body and say that I'm actually stronger now. I've learned from these past energies. I've learned that I can move through everything and that I will continue to trust myself. That is another gift of the Scorpio energy, is that when you trust yourself, you are really putting your energy in what matters. Because when you trust yourself, then you'll know who else you can trust. Then you'll know what you're feeling around other people. And it comes into when we trust ourselves, we are stronger than we realize. So as we move through Scorpio season, it does require us to go into areas that maybe are really uncomfortable, but that's where the transformation happens. That's where what we thought was a fear, we see it as, oh, this is a place in my energy that really loves me and just wants me to stay safe. It's a place that doesn't want me to get hurt again, but I'm going to have a conversation with that energy and let it know that I can handle this. I'm really strong now. I've learned a lot. I've learned from my choices. I wouldn't do that again, or I would trust myself more going forward. And then you feel that rising power that moves you past the cage of the mind or the cage of the ego, often both. So moving into November is going to begin these openings of what you can really trust in yourself, and powerfully so. It's a sense of a rising power that happens. And I feel like this Taurus full moon is a breakout because there could be something that's very clear for you. I also feel like this Mercury in Libra is going to be squaring Saturn in Capricorn on November 1st, the same day that Venus in Libra opposes Chiron retrograde in Aries at 5 degrees. So we have a very dynamic start to November that is taking us out of it feels like our human skin. It's a shedding, which by the way is very Scorpio, where the snake molts and removes its skin. That's what this is too. It's a removal of wherever you've been limited. And as you move into this, it's interesting because I feel like after a skin is shed, after a snake molts or after that layer is removed, it can feel very sensitive and very vulnerable. It's sort of like there aren't the barriers there. There isn't the protection that kept us safe. But there is a new energetic here that's even stronger around the safety being within. And that's where the strength is as well. And so even if it feels a little vulnerable, a little sensitive, a little scary, a little uncertain, there is this new internal foundation that is trustworthy, powerful, wise, and very aware. This is interesting. Very aware of everything you have already survived through multiple lifetimes. Because now I'm feeling the energy connects to the DNA. And this is part of DNA reprogramming, where the messages or the energies that were so loud and they prevented you from doing something that's in your heart, or prevented you from following a dream or doing something that you really want to do, it's all getting reprogrammed during this Scorpio season. And it's our own willingness to move with that, to flow with it, that makes the difference. And it's a trust. It's really a bigger trust that what you're feeling or sensing is something you can work with. But I feel like it's tapping us into a deeper well of power that we didn't know we had access to. And it feels really strong. It feels really like clear and solid, but it's also an unknown. And so this is again where we go back to night vision glasses, or, trusting as you move through the dark, and trusting your own senses, and understanding that there are new potentials taking shape that you're going to get more energy around as we move into November. And the energies are going to accelerate, and they're going to really reflect back to you more of who you are now, more of what you've learned throughout 2020. And also I feel like these doors opening, like it's just doors opening, because it's time now to move forward. But it's important to move forward in a way that's actually in a new expression, a higher alignment. It's like the work you've been doing is going to feel lighter. It's going to feel less burdensome. It's almost like you just can drop it or put it down. And that's part of the gifts of Scorpio season, and part of why things feel so intense before we move into this next chapter or this new paradigm. So I hope this has given you some good things to be aware of in yourself, and to understand that yes, there is a pressure, a tension, a back and forth right now, and it could feel like things aren't clear. But if you hold your intention for clarity and to be liberated or freed or awakened from anything that is not for your best and highest good, you could feel that shift happen over this next week and as we move into November. So again, you can check out all of the astrology for November 2020 through the Soul Growth webinars that I offer, and you can find that information below this podcast. Gives you a heads up on not only November, but the beginning of eclipse season. And the eclipses are fast moving. This is a very fast moving energy that's coming in that is going to shift up what we have been moving through in 2020. So this will give you a heads up on where those energies will show up in your own world as well. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that this was a timely energy update for you, and that it resonates with whatever you may be experiencing or moving through now. I will be back on Monday for another podcast episode, as I do them every Monday and Wednesday, and I appreciate your time, energy, and presence as always. I hope you have a beautiful and high vibrational Taurus Full Moon on October 31st, and I will see you soon as we continue the journey together.